In 1930, the Republican-controlled House of Representatives, in an effort to alleviate the effects of the, anyone? The Great Depression, passed the, anyone? A tariff bill, the Hawley-Smoot Tariff Act, which, anyone, raised or lowered? Raised tariffs in an effort to collect more revenue for the federal government. Did it work? Anyone? Anyone know the effects? It did not work, and the United States sank deeper into the Great Depression. Today, we have a similar debate over this. Anyone know what this is, class? Anyone? Anyone seen this before? The Laffer curve. Anyone know what this says? It says that at this point on the revenue curve, you will get exactly the same amount of revenue as at this point. This is very controversial. Does anyone know what Vice President Bush called this in 1980? Anyone? Something DOO economics. Voodoo economics. Bueller. 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 Bueller.
Earlier today, the president announced a peace deal between Bahrain and Israel, which is another massive, huge step towards Middle East peace. So, will the mob, the media, give this major accomplishment the credit it deserves? Well, they didn't mention the first peace deal with the UAE. I doubt it. They'll do it here. Yesterday, by the way, new documents released by the DOJ showing that multiple members of Mueller's team actually wiped their phones clean before turning them over to the Inspector General. And tonight, Republicans are rightly demanding answers and suggesting this could amount to anticipatory obstruction of justice. Where's the outrage from the mob, then the media? Imagine if Donald Trump did it. Joining us now, White House Press Secretary Kayleigh McEnany. Okay, well, we had a lot of people get prosecuted by the Mueller mob for process crimes, including obstruction and not handing over emails and lying to Congress. Didn't we, Kayleigh?
Yes, we did. And now we learn what Mueller's team was doing. Several dozens, think about that, several dozens of devices returned damaged, wiped clean, some of them intentionally so. One of those devices was Andrew Weissman's.
Two of the devices were Weissman's.
Two were Weissman's, who was rebuked 9-2-0 by the Supreme Court for prosecutorial overreach misconduct. And Lisa Page, too, among these offenders. Mueller is saying, we'll prosecute you for process while we, several dozens of us, are engaging in the same kind of obstruction that is uncalled for.
It just shows the depth at which this has gotten out of control, because we also know that they were warned numerous times, even before the first FISA warrant was issued. We know that they were warned by Kathleen Kavlik at the State Department, Bruce Orr. Christopher Steele has an agenda. Hillary paid for it, and it's not verified. They signed it anyway. When they finally got to the subsource, in other words, the source behind Steele's dirty Russian dossier that Hillary paid for, well, then they found out in January of 2017, the subsource said, no, this was all bar talk. None of this is true. So it was never, now we know it's debunked. So it was never verifiable, which means we never should have had a Mueller investigation, period. But I don't hear from your friends that are in that press room with you regularly, hammering you with questions about these issues. Why?
They don't care. How many times have I been asked questions about very legitimate things like Michael Flynn, the injustice done to him, the Obama administration, that Oval Office meeting? Literally during my tenure, we find out that Susan Rice, on the way out the door, writes this email inscribing a meeting from days prior, weeks prior, actually, and says Obama did everything by the book. This was a very curious email, not asked about that because they simply don't care. And there are two tiers of justice in this country. One for Mueller's team and Hillary Clinton, and another for Michael Flynn and the Trump administration.
Well, I mean, Mike, look at 4 years of General Flynn's life now put on hold. The president discussed this yesterday. The president lays it out. Do you get any questions about the abuse of power and corruption of Comey, Page, Strzok, McCabe and company? Do you ever get any questions about them?
Zero. Literally zero. From the reporters sitting there in the chairs in the briefing room, none. And I even inquired to them, how many of you have reached out to Obama's office, his representative, to ask some questions? Not a single hand went up because they simply don't care.
Every single day I watch the media. And, for example, I watch the president. The president acted on 10 days after the first identified case of coronavirus. That was January 21st. His travel ban went into effect on January 31st. Joe Biden on February 1st actually said it was hysterical xenophobia and fear-mongering. He said it all throughout the month of January, the month of February, and deep into March. Now he's saying, oh, no, we supported the travel ban at the time. I'm like, huh?
Yeah, it's amazing. They didn't support the China travel ban. They didn't support the European travel ban. As you noted, they call it fear-mongering. They call it hysteria. And his advisor, by the way, saying this wouldn't turn into a serious pandemic, and noting that his same advisor, Ron Klain, is the one that said, we barely survived H1N1. It was mere fortuity that swine flu was not one of the mass casualty events of our time.
All right, Kayleigh McEnany, I don't think you get paid enough. I could not do your job. It's job impossible. I'd have a very hard time keeping my temper in check in that room.
You do great, Sean.